Good morning, Ryan.
Hey, good morning, Pepe.
How we doing?
Doing great. How about you?
Excellent, excellent. This is Ray Dumais coming to you from Hooksett, New Hampshire, and Mr. Ryan.
And Brian, coming to you from, let's see, I'm on my way to Nashua right now. So coming to you from Nashua, Nashua, New Hampshire.
Excellent. All right, Ryan and I had lunch yesterday and talked about maybe continuing our sessions. And this morning we're going to talk a little bit about goal setting. And it's interesting. I was flipping through some files yesterday, cleaning some files out, and I ran across some goals that I had set 38 years ago, and I saw one that Ryan set, and I checked the year, and then it went when it was he was 8 years old, and it
Yeah.
said, it's funny, it's written in your handwriting, and it says, I'm going to get a wife, and I'm going to have two kids, and I'm going to go on vacation, Disney type vacations with my two kids and my wife. That's interesting because that's 20 years ago, Ryan, right?
Yeah.
And
Check, check. And I haven't gone to Disney, but we do go on vacation. So
yeah, you've been on a couple of cruises, which is like somewhat Disney,
yeah, it's Disney-like.
which is interesting. And I ran across something I had written down when I was living in northern Maine 37 years ago that we wanted to have a place in New Hampshire and live in a place in Florida. And it's interesting. This is 37 years ago, Ryan. And I just realized that we're entering our 10th year going to Florida for the winters. So it's interesting. So the fact is, be careful what you write down.
Just might come true, right?
I know, right? So Ryan, how do you see goal setting in your life and your business and life? And
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I guess a little bit about my experience with goal setting, but you have much more experience in this domain than I do. So I'd love to hear what you have to say too. For me, I mean, I first started setting goals a long time ago, 20 years ago, I guess.
you know, right?
And yeah, and that was, I think, very much at the behest of you. I think you sat me down and said, "Hey, let's write some goals," and I thought that was pretty cool. And then, also my dad encouraged me to write goals, and then some of the books that I started reading told me to write goals. And for a long time, I was an amateur goal setter, long, long time. In fact, until I was an adult, I would say I was an amateur goal setter. And I think this is where sort of most people are, right? So I didn't write goals on any regular schedule. I would just occasionally take out a piece of paper and write down like a wish list of, what I want my life to be like. And that list that you found from when I was 8 years old, I think is an example of what some of my early goal setting looked like. And then in my teenage years, I started getting a little bit more sophisticated. So I discovered the SMART acronym, right?
Yeah,
So maybe we'll talk a little bit about SMART, but
yeah,
that's an acronym that you can use to determine the quality of your goals. And so I started making them more specific. I started putting them on my walls. And so that I think helped me to make more progress to them. I started sort of seeing them regularly. And then when I became an adult, I would say that's when and now I would not that I'm a professional goal setter per se, but I'm the best I've ever been at writing goals now. So every year I write new goals for the year.
yeah,
And every year I do a life assessment. And this is facilitated to me by this journal that I have called the Living Your Best Year Ever Journal.
yeah,
And so it takes you through a life assessment that helps you to sort of gauge your success in various life categories. And the reason that it has you do that is so that you can see if there are any parts of your life where you're really lacking and make goals around that so that you can live a well-rounded life, right? Because one of the things that can start to happen is when you become successful is you become really successful in this one area of your life, and then the other parts of your life can sort of start to lag. So if you ever met like a really fat rich guy, right? He's rich, great, he's doing great financially, but he's really fat. So So that's there's sort of a disconnect there, right? Um, and so yeah, so this journal, the Living Your Best Year Ever journal, it helps me do a life assessment, and then I write my top 10 annual goals, and then I narrow it down into a top three. And then it goes even deeper than that. It has like a daily, weekly, monthly check-in system that holds me accountable to the goals that I set. So, you know, back when I was 8, I would say I was sort of like a level 1 goal setter. Now maybe I'm like level 10. So I've made some progress. And because of that, I think I'm much more effective at achieving my goals now. I've achieved most of my significant annual goals over the previous years. Um, and yeah, I credit that though with the practice that I had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That's sort of my experience with goal setting. What's your experience, and how do you sort of approach and think about how goals play a role in your life?
Well, setting goals were kind of a haphazard process. At one time, you want to get a job or go to school or whatever. But eventually, it's a very, intriguing process. And by the way, only 3% of the people in the world set goals, and
Is it
97
that small? Wow.
that it's very small. And the fact is, for people that do set goals and write goals and have, of course, a strategy to accomplish them, accomplish about 40% more in life. So it's really kind of great exercise to practice daily and yearly, as you said. And it gives us, I guess, people directions. Otherwise, we can drift. It's easier to drift in life. Like you go to the beach and go in the ocean, and then you go and then play in the water and stuff and swim. And the first thing you know, you look at where you were, and then the spot where you went in, you're way down over here without realizing too much what happened. But life can be the same thing unless you're focused or you want to write down the things you want to do, you want to get, you want to be. Life can we can drift through life, or we can be intentional with our actions and stuff. So, as you mentioned, writing goals can be short terms, 6 months to a year and a half is a good place, and then again 2 to 3 years, and also 3 to 5 years. Of course, the 6 months to a year and a half would be a bit more specific, and the other one's going to be a little vaguer, but then you write it down, and as you go you develop a strategy. And let's talk about that SMART uh, acronym. To goals must be specific. Okay, if you want to take a vacation or travel, just writing down I want to travel is not enough. Right? Where do you want to go? When? With whom? So be specific, and it's going to be measurable. I know I go in your office and you have your goals, the number of clients that you want, and you've got that on the wall, and you've got the statistics, and you've got the program to attain these goals, and your staff, your team also sees those goals, so you're participating in the professional goal setting, could be personal goal setting as well, could be financial goal setting, could be, your health, again, setting goals in different facets, and we'll cover that a little bit later, but, they're going to be attainable. Like I could set a goal to buy a jet, $20 million, but at this time in my life, with my finances and my business, that would not be a attainable, reasonable goal. Right. So it's going to be something you can attain. Otherwise, it becomes a fantasy and not a goal. So back to you.
Yeah, let's see. So you went through specific, measurable, attainable. So the final two in the acronym there are relevant and time
Yep.
bound. So relevance is an interesting part of the SMART acronym. I have struggled in my life with often setting goals that I feel like I should have rather than goals that I actually truly want. I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but you know, there are a lot of different expectations that people and your mom and your parents and your teachers and society will set for you
Hmm.
that aren't necessarily true to what you want. So, for example, a goal that I had set at one point was to graduate college. I enrolled in college. I started attending college. I set the goal to graduate college. Um, I would say that that goal was not actually relevant to what I wanted and what my plan was, or maybe I thought it did at the time, but it certainly changed. And so it's important to make sure that your goals are relevant to you and what you want, and not what other people want for you or what you think you should do, right? So that's how I interpret the R in the SMART acronym. And
Yep.
then finally, T for time bound. You have to have a certain date by which the goal can be measured as achieved or not achieved. And the reason that they have to be time bound is because for a goal to be effective, it has to be like yes, I achieved it or no, I didn't. And that's really why it has to be specific, measurable as
Right.
well, right? Because goals are ineffective as a mechanism to change behavior if you can't clearly tell whether you have or have not achieved them, right? And so this is actually some an interesting delineation that I have just started to uncover, which is the difference between intentions and goals, right?
Mhm.
So it's great to have intentions. It like I intend to be a loving husband, I intend to be a loving father, I intend to be a successful business owner. Um, and it's great to have positive intentions, but I think it's important to not confuse your intentions with goals, right? So to me, goals are what take your intentions and make them actionable, right? So having the intention of being a great husband, it's again, it's great to have that intention. I encourage you to have that intention, but then what actually does a great husband do? Well,
Right.
he probably takes his wife on dates. He probably spends quality time with his wife. Maybe gets, his wife nice gifts, or make ensures that he leaves work on time so he can be at home with the family. Those are all action items that you can take to live out your intention of being a loving husband. And then you can set goals around those specific behaviors. So, for example, one of my intentions this year is to be a loving husband. Uh, One of the action items and the goals that I have to make that into reality is I try to go on a date with my wife at least twice a month. So twice a month, I will hire a sitter, and me and her will go on a date. And this is something I track in my journal to make sure that it happens. And then at the end of the month, I say, okay, did I take her on 2 dates or did I not take her on 2 dates? So that's specific, that's measurable, it's certainly attainable, it's relevant to me, and it's time
Right.
bound. I have to take her on 2 dates by the end of the month. Um,
Right.
and so, yeah, I think that's one of the things that can sort of trip people up is they'll have intentions and think they have goals, but goals are specific, granular, yes or no. And the reason that they're like that is because that is compelling to you. Like that will encourage you to take action. Whereas intentions can sometimes sort of be amorphous, like, how do I like put this intention into action? It's not clear unless you write a goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. No, that's awesome, Ryan. And also it helps us, behave the behavior we have, our daily behaviors should kind of lead towards the attainment of those goals if those are relevant and important to us. And oftentimes, you mentioned, people, we have to be careful about, especially today's social media and other people, like we want to compete with people that, may or may not be on the right path or be influenced by other people or by social media. So if we have our goals written down, we can be, more focused, if you will, more intentional, and it's all measured by behavior. Like, I talked about, your daily list should be eventually leading to your weekly goals, monthly goals, yearly goals, right? So what you do on a daily basis should eventually, or monthly basis, lead to the accomplishment of those goals. And if you don't set those, a lot of people kind of waste time. You can be busy or it can be productive. Yeah, we always have that choice, right?
Yeah.
And so it's interesting, to take it down as a like a big, dream fuzzy things and bring it down to specific, so we know when we did achieve it. It's interesting. Um, Health is the same way. You change your behavior, and eventually you get the weight you want, you get the numbers you want. I know you don't worry too much about numbers, but we do at my age, right? You want your dashboard, your health dashboard, to be fairly not too many red lights flashing on there, right? So,
Yeah.
what can you do each day to accomplish that and get to me, it's a quality of life,
Mm.
and you teach that, and it's interesting. Over the years, even when the kids were little, and you guys, you do it, with them, and the younger, it can be a little bit more fuzzy, but as we grow older, we need to be more specific. So it's interesting, and then write it down, review it, and if you have somebody to work with, uh, a partner, make sure your partner is aware of your goals, your significant other in your life, your wife, even sometimes the kids,
Mm.
if it involves them, setting a vacation time. As the kids get older, you do this, we can take a vacation when you attain these different things. We can go have a reward for your accomplishments. So, set up a little system of acknowledging the accomplishments of your goals, and then a little rewards. You reward yourself or reward other people for attaining their goals. So it's kind of interesting. To me, it's like it's almost a natural process today. But for a while along, I had no idea. I was drifting.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, no, I sort of went through the same change where now if I don't have goals for the week or the month or the year, I feel like uncomfortable. I'm like, well, what am I working towards? Like, what's going on? What direction am I heading in?
Yep, exactly. No,
Yeah, and it's amazing because life will just sort of take you on this stream of time, and it'll just bring you forward into the future. It's like Jim Rohn says, the only thing that's guaranteed, and it's not even a guarantee, is that you will arrive in the future.
yeah, right.
But the question is, where will you arrive?
Yeah,
Um, and so to me, yeah, goals. If your life is a boat floating along sort of the river of time, goals are like a rudder that you can stick into that into that river and that you can turn and steer. And ultimately, I think the goal of the purpose of setting goals is to change your behavior, right? And you're a teacher, so you probably know this, but getting people to change their behavior is extremely challenging. I
right.
mean, I have been humbled a lot about my ability to change other people's behavior, mainly because I've observed how hard it is to change my own behavior. So if I struggle this much with changing my own behavior, I'm pretty skeptical of people's abilities to change other people's behaviors. So
Right.
um, yeah, the purpose of goals are to change your own behavior, and they do that through encouragement, right? So goals can be very encouraging, and also accountability, right? One of the best things that has happened to me is when I've not achieved my goal, right? And when you make it specific, measurable, and attainable, relevant, and time bound, you have nowhere to hide. It's
Right.
like I set this goal, I didn't do what it takes, and I don't have it, and the time has passed. And then you get to really ask yourself, well, why was this something that was really important to me? If it's really important to me, why didn't I make time for it? And sometimes you discover that there's something in your life that's distracting you, or sometimes you discover, maybe I really don't want to do what it takes to get that thing. When I was a young man, I competed in a bodybuilding competition,
Yeah.
and that was great. And immediately following that competition, I had set the goal to compete in additional competitions. I was pretty interested in it. I thought it was pretty fun. And then as I sort of progressed down that path, I realized, no, actually, I don't really want to be a bodybuilder. And I realized that because I sort of missed, a certain muscle growth, goal. And I
Yeah,
was like, why did I miss this? And the answer is, well, I don't really want to do that. So
right,
then I got,
right.
then I got to set other goals. So even, yeah, even just like, uh, if you're scared to set goals because you're scared of failure or not achieving your goals, realize that that is part of the process. And in fact, that itself can be really beneficial, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And be, I be care. We have to be careful we don't beat ourselves up. It's
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, I'm a loser. I didn't accomplish this and stuff. And the key is, if you accomplish all your goals, then they were not high enough or important enough so you won't be accomplishing all the goals, but are you closer to that goal than you were when you first started, whether it's health-wise, financially, family-wise. And so, it's important to make small changes. It is hard to change. Behavior is hard to change, for us, and it's almost impossible to change somebody else's behavior.
Yeah.
It's like the old saying is trying to get a pig to sing. It frustrates the pig and it frustrates you. Right? So the key is, you get some harmony and something that kind of matches your values in life, I guess is what I'm getting to. So something that is worth accomplishing, something that matches your values and where you want to be as a person. So goals don't have to be all material things. They could be, it's just the relationships with your important people, your spouse, your kids, uh, grandparents. It's the same thing. Going back and looking at, it's a staying in touch with, say my kids at least a couple of times a month. Do the same thing, having at least an exercise program where certain weeks, certain days, and you got to break it down and be more specific. I'm going to do this day, otherwise the day goes by and nothing gets done. So yeah, it's interesting. It's a process. You can't even buy an airplane ticket without having a place to go. Right? You ever try going to the airport and say, I want a ticket to where? I don't know. Just give me a ticket.
Yeah.
Unless you go to a bus station and just kind of ride the bus to nowhere. But the key is,
I think that's how most people are living their lives. They're just riding the bus to nowhere. They say, yeah, this bus is heading in a good direction. I'll go on this bus.
yeah, right, right. So,
Yeah.
it's kind of interesting and it's serious, but it's a learned process. And as you said, The Compound Effect by Darren Hart is a good book. I remember reading the book, the Magic of Thinking Big with Dr. David Schwartz back, when I started the business. And again, see yourself. How do you want to live? What kind of quality of life do you want? Set goals for it, and see sometimes where you don't want to go,
Mm,
right? And
yeah.
and so it's kind of a process. To me, it's kind of exciting, and there's a whole, I think, life assessing what you did this year, this month, this week. Are you happy with it? Can you fine tune it? Can you refine it? And it's a continuous process. I compare Ryan sometimes to a pilot. He's got a destination, flying an airplane, but you also have winds that push you off. And so you have to keep correcting, if you want to get to your destination, because if you don't correct, even 1% off over, 500 miles will put you in a totally different direction. And that's,
Yeah.
I think, sometimes where people end up in life. So, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? It's because you
Yeah.
did not correct or adjust back then. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly correct. Yeah. Yeah. I have a couple other thoughts, and then maybe we'll wrap it up.
Yep.
So the first thought that comes up to me from what you're saying is people often overestimate what they can accomplish in a day, and they massively underestimate what they can accomplish in a year or a few years. So that's just one thing to keep in mind that I have noticed through my goal setting is that I typically underestimate what I can do in a year, but I overestimate what I can do in a day or in a week. Um, a part of goal setting too that can be challenging is running up against your self identity and who you think you are. And I don't know if I have any specific advice about this, but I think it's just useful to be aware of it as you start setting goals. Because when you first set goals, they may be uncomfortable. If you set the goal, for example, to be a millionaire, but you're broke, you have the identity of being a broke person. And the truth is that what you'll have to do to eventually accomplish the goal of being a millionaire is you'll first have to become a millionaire who's broke. You have to adopt the identity of the thing that you're trying to become, because otherwise you will unconsciously self-sabotage yourself. And Jim Rohn used to say it great. I think he said something like, goal setting is not about what you do, but rather it's about who you become, right? And so through the process of like setting the goal to be a millionaire, for example, what you do is great, and getting the $1 million is great, but even better is becoming a millionaire, like being someone who can have $1 million net worth is truly the best part of that process, I think. Um, and then finally, I just wanted to just talk briefly about how to put some of this into action for people who are listening. And a suggestion that I have is I always like to set my goals around New Year's, but we're recording this in July, right? So it's
Right.
New Year's is a little ways out. What I would suggest is for people, if you look up the Compound Effect book,
Yep.
Darren Hardy has some free resources online. And part of those free resources include the life assessment that I do every year
Yep.
and includes like a goal setting worksheet. So that can be a great place to start is with the Compound Effect free resources. Um, if folks don't want to do that, that's fine. What I would do instead is just list categories of your life that you'd like to see improved, whether it's health, relationships, money, physical fitness, impact, spirituality, and then write just some very basic 1 year goals in those categories. By next year, I would like X. And then hang on to that sheet and review it.
Yeah, excellent. It's important. Again, at first it may feel a little awkward, like anything else that we're trying that's new. But as
Yeah.
you go, it becomes part of your life, in your life process, and you have to mentally see what you want to, become. I remember when you were a little kid, said, Ryan, what are you going to be when you get older? And you always say, I want to be a millionaire. I don't know what image you had, but you had that image of becoming a millionaire, and obviously you've accomplished that, and then some. And then the key is in your mind's eye, you have to see it. And then there's an audio called "The Stranger's Secret" by Earl Nightingale, and it's again programming yourself. And it says a little rudder will direct a big ship, and the same thing in life. Our brain, the way we speak, the way we see ourselves will determine where we end up. So feed your mind, feed your brain, change your behavior, and write it down. Then we'll talk to you at some other point. We'll discuss different facets of life. So yeah, I wish you a good day, Mr. Ryan.
Thanks, Pepe. Yeah, you too. Great conversation on goal setting.
All right. All right. Enjoy your day. We'll talk to you later.
All right. Love you, Pepe. Thanks.
Love you too. God bless. Bye bye.